Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, James Anderson, and I got a great show today. I've got my friend Eno Sarris from The Athletic here. Got to hang out with Eno in Arizona recently. That was fun. Eno, thanks for hopping on. How you doing, man?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I thought of you recently. I was at Jerry Garcia Band recently, and they had a fiddler with a violin that was just shredding, like literally shredding his bow. The bow was like coming apart in pieces. And I was like, James might like this.
Well, I'm honored you thought of me in a cool setting. So we were hanging out at First Pitch Arizona, and there was this kind of group of really exciting. I'm calling them high upside starting pitchers, but it's really more sort of unproven starting pitchers with upside because we've seen that you don't need to be young and unproven to have upside, just given where guys are going in drafts. But I've talked a lot about the guys who are still prospect eligible, and we're going to talk about some of them in a second here. But I just wanted to start with these four pitchers who are all going in the 9th round of 15-team high-stakes draft and hold leagues right now. They're all getting treated like high-end SP3s, and it's Chase Burns of the Reds, Jacob Misiorowski of the Brewers, Cam Schlittler of the Yankees, and Emmet Sheehan of the Dodgers. All four of those, Burns, Misiorowski, Schlittler, Sheehan, they're all going in the 130s on average, so the 9th round. They're all going, just ahead of guys like Zach Wheeler, Brandon Woodruff, Carlos Rodon. They're going just in front of guys like Shane Bieber, Sonny Gray, Luis Castillo. So, a nice spread of pitchers who've definitely done it before. You're obviously seeing discounted prices on Wheeler and Woodruff because of the health concerns there. But, let's maybe start with Burns. Like I really love the pitcher. I mean, he was just a strikeout monster for the entire time he was healthy last year. He obviously missed some time. He got to 111 innings, combining the minors and majors. He's got the highest K- walk by steamer of these guys in terms of a projection. What do you think about Burns? What do you think about him getting treated already sort of like a high-end SP3 in high-stakes drafts?
I think you got to take one of these guys. I think that there's just too much going on here with just trends in the high-stakes leagues, which are usually indicative of people who've done the research and know a lot about these players. And also just what you're talking about, the relationship of upside to cost. I think any one of these guys could be a total, like an ace. An ace is ace, like just a 150, 170 inning, 30% strikeout rate ace. All of them have little flaws. So you're kind of choosing your little flaw. I think with Burns, it's just a kind of a smaller arsenal. It's fastball slider. And he just gives me a lot of, it reminds me a lot of kind of Hunter Green.
Yep.
Coming through the same park, dominant stuff, high draft pick, and little bit of injury in his first year with the flexor strain with Chase Burns, and Green has had some injuries himself. So I think that Hunter Green himself reminds you that, this is a guy who, despite the fewer innings, despite not having a ton of innings, Hunter Green has been a top 25 pitcher 2 years in a row. And he hasn't been drafted as such. So yeah. I think you can get on the beginning of the sort of Hunter Green hype train. Now, is there a chance that maybe the innings aren't there? Is there a chance that the changeup, doesn't get there in terms of command, and he is a true 2-pitch guy that maybe only goes 5 1/3, 5 2/3, maybe has a home run issue every once in a while? There is that chance because, that's what happened, and that's what his arsenal is. It's a small arsenal. But Hunter Green eventually found that splitter, and dominated even in 1 year without a splitter. He had a great year with just fastball slider. So at the beginning of a career, you can get that Spencer Strider, Hunter Green goodness without all the extra pitches. And I think Burns' pitches are dominant enough. So I'm fine with him there. And he might be my pick of the 4. There's another guy in there that I think the flaw is even lesser, maybe, which is Cam Schlittler.
Sure. Yeah. Let's talk about Cam.
Well, I just think the Cam is like the fastballs are great, and he's really developed 2 of them now, and he gets great numbers on them. Stuff loves them. Stuff also loves his breaking balls, but he didn't get the whiff rates you'd expect on them. So I don't know what's going on there. That's the only question mark I have from him. And if you have models that like it, and the eye test likes it in terms of he throws a really hard sweeper and a really good curveball, it looks like. And the models like it, and for some reason he didn't get whiffs on it in this first time through the order, I would say that's like sequencing, figuring it out, when to throw which, when to maybe throw more sliders so that they are even backed up more on the fastball, and so kind of play with it. I think, Cam Schlittler and Burns are my 2 favorite in here.
Yeah. It's just so tough. And obviously the drafting public hasn't really made up their mind in a strong way either. It's so hard. Like even just comparing Schlittler versus Burns, like you're on the clock, you're in the middle of the round maybe, so you're pretty sure whoever you don't take, or both guys aren't going to make it back, one guy's not going to make it back, so you got to take one of them.
You can't play any games with this whole crew. I think you get one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think. So you're on Schlittler, Burns a little bit.
I think I'm on Schlittler. What I really like is he has the Triforce, which I call is the 3 fastballs, 4-seam, cutter, sinker. All of them got really good whiffs for their pitch type. All of them have really good stuff numbers. When it comes to curveball and sweeper, I'm going to say the model likes them, and they're going to get better. So, that's a wide arsenal on a team that's going to provide him wins. I don't think there's really, in any concern, we didn't have an injury from him to finish the year. So that's my argument for Schlittler over Burns.
Yeah, and Schlittler logged the most innings of these 4 guys by a fairly substantial amount. Schlittler was at 164 innings. Misiorowski was 130 and 2/3. Burns was at 111, and Sheehan was at 100 and 1/3, and that's counting their playoff innings. So Schlittler, yeah, I mean, like he throws really hard, but all these guys throw really hard. and I think, that innings total, the fact that he already got up to 164 this past year, I think that definitely means something. He also has, for what it's worth, he has the lesser of the projections, I guess, if we're just looking at Steamer, potentially because he most recently kind of came into the current version of himself. I think like Burns and
reaching back to some rookie ball numbers and stuff.
Right. Like of these guys, I think Schlittler is the one whose stuff has jumped the most in the past,
especially even in velo. Yeah, what you might know better than I did, but he had real big jumps in velo in the minors, right?
Yep. Yeah. And that was pretty steady, and it just kind of culminated with last season, obviously, of him kind of getting into the peak of his stuff.
That might worry me some, but I have read up on part of it was just this ironing out process that he's done with his pitches, like creating a 4-seam, a cutter, and a sinker that are separate. He kind of used to just throw a fastball that was kind of crappy by shape, and it was kind of like somewhere in the middle of all these 3. And that was probably robbing him of some velocity, because he was basically throwing like a cut fastball as his regular fastball. And by separating out the 4-seam and separating out the sinker, I think there was a process there that kind of unlocked velo on top of body changes and maybe weighted balls and stuff like that. So I know that that's a little bit weird. It is an outlier in terms of velo gained in the minor leagues, but all I can do is analyze the guys in front of me. And I will say that when other projection systems start coming out, I would suggest that Schlittler will gain a lot. Like, for example, Oopsie, when it comes out, it has Stuff Plus in it, and Cam Schlittler. And of this group, I mean, they all have great Stuff Plus, but that'll help maybe soften the difference when it comes to the projections.
So I think my least favorite of the 4 is Misiorowski.
Intriguing.
It's basically I trust him the least of the 4. So it's like I see that sort of, you're chasing obviously that top 25 SP upside that these guys all have. but you really don't want the player to like tank your ratios and get hurt, or just be really, tough to trust early in the season. And I feel like Misiorowski's the most likely to be that of these four. But
is that because you think that the team will slow walk him innings wise to like retain more innings on the back end?
I think his flaw, he has to be around the zone. Like whenever he's not around the zone, he can kind of walk anyone. And but then when he's around the zone, he can sit down anyone. So
right,
there's a reason he's going this high. What are your kind of fears with Misiorowski?
It is actually like a little bit weirder. Like Schlittler's like I call the Triforce, right? You got the 3 fastballs. With Burns, it's like the Spencer Strider package, just a dominant fastball slider. That's what I got. I don't know, like in terms of like pitch movements and body type, and like plus extension, Misiorowski gets really far down the mound. There's a lot he has in common with Jacob deGrom. But the problem is that Jacob deGrom also had plus command on top of all that. And that's like what Misiorowski's missing. And so what he settled into is the slider is his fastball, in terms of like the slider is the pitch he can throw for strikes. The fastball then becomes the slider in terms of the fastball is the pitch he throws for swinging strikes. And the curveball is the changeup. The curveball is the change of speed. The maybe I can get a called strike with this, whatever. It's the thing that changes up everything like a changeup would. And the changeup is kind of like a power sinker. So everything's kind of discombobulated with him, and I think it could work. But I also know that, like, I'm not making a comp here, but Joe Boyle went through a similar process where he's like, man, I can't command the fastball. And so then he went to the slider, in counts where he needed a strike. And it works for a little bit, but then at some point, hitters just sit on the slider. So I don't know what the reaction will be from the league. And I also don't know how healthy it is to ask Jacob Misiorowski to throw 94-mile-an-hour sliders over and over again for strikes, right? Because that is the thing that deGrom does, and there is some research that suggests that once you get into the mid 90s with a slider, it becomes pretty stressful on your elbow, and we know that deGrom's had that elbow concern. So I share with you the command concern, which is obvious. And then I add just a little bit of concern with how does it all fit together, and does it fit together in a sustainable manner? Can he continue to throw 94-mile-an-hour sliders over and over again when he needs strikes? Because he needs strikes a lot. And in the playoffs, it looked at times like, oh, this is unhittable. This is going to work forever. But you can't be playoff version of yourself for 6 months. Like you just can't. You can't be out there throwing 50% 94-mile-an-hour sliders for 30 starts. I don't like, maybe you can, but the next person who does it will be the first, I feel like.
So we haven't talked about Sheehan at all. He threw the fewest innings last year coming back from Tommy John surgery, but he still got over 100 if you count the postseason. Right behind Burns with a 19.0 K- walk by Steamer. And Sheehan was really one of the best pitchers in the game over the final 6 weeks of the season. And I was impressed by how much he got the innings up in that first year back, and just impressed by how he finished, impressed by really how dominant he was at times against some good lineups. Love the team context for wins, but he'll probably have the fewest 2-start weeks of these guys, I guess, if everything goes perfectly, which would probably be the first thing I would point to against Sheehan. But I love the pitcher. What do you see with him?
It's interesting. Steamer only says 115 innings. I guess that's a combination of him never having really gone more than the 80, 90 innings that he had last year. So the projected people putting that projection number in just don't feel like he can go way beyond that. Then also on top of what you're talking about, team context, where they're going to go 6 starters a lot. But I did look at like if you just use the same 6 starters over and over again through full season, you can get to like 140, 145 innings, I think. So maybe I'd take a slight over on that 115 projection, but I do think innings is he's the biggest innings concern of this group. And then I add on top of that, just this is a kind of like a model concern, and it hasn't actually played out this way in reality. But Stuff Plus says that his slider isn't very good, that it's below average, and that basically he's like a pronator. He's a fastball changeup guy that just has to throw his slider real hard, and in order to make it better. And for all intents and purposes, he did that 87.8 miles an hour on the slider for Sheehan last year. But Stuff Plus still kind of looked at that and yawned. I then looked at his splits, though, and he has not shown a reverse split for his career. So he has the lefties are a little bit better against him than righties, especially when it comes to slugging. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think of Sheehan's slider? It's a very sort of niche concern, but it matters because it's right on right. You're going to face a lot of righties, and you got to get them out.
Right. I mean, it's definitely the fastball and changeup, and sort of how the fastball and changeup play off each other is definitely the best part of it. Yeah, I mean, that is he does have the weakest breaking ball of the 4. I'm really not that concerned about the like 115 innings. Like I would take the way over on that. I just think I think he's just always going to be one of their 5 best starters.
I mean, he got a 44% whiff rate on the slider last year. I mean, maybe the model's missing something. So,
yeah, I mean, I think whenever I watch him, he just kind of looks one step ahead of the batters. And he's entering his age 26 season here. 6'5", 220. Like I think he can really push up.
Should be good to go. No real concerns with command.
No, not at all. He had a hilarious 31-2 K to walk on his rehab at AAA. Yeah, so I mean, all 4 of these guys are going in the 9th round. You're basically drafting them as your SP3, and I agree with Eno. I think I definitely would like to get one of these 4 on my teams. Just kind of, it seems like a lot, and we're going to talk about some of these prospects too in a second here, but it seems like a lot of like figuring out which of these high upside pitchers to land on. There's obviously going to be a luck component involved because I'm sure one of Burns, Misiorowski, Schlittler misses time with some sort of injury. Sheehan could as well, obviously, but I definitely think this is kind of an important battleground in these drafts that are happening right now. Now, Nolan McLean is going a round and a half, 2 rounds ahead of these guys in the 7th round. He's got an ADP of 106.6. Trey Yesavage is down at 143 and 2/3, or at 143.2 for Trey Yesavage. So he's going about in the 10th round, the beginning of the 11th round. Do you agree with drafters that Nolan McLean is 2 rounds better than Burns and Schlittler?
No, I do not. My reasoning on Nolan McLean is just that I found him to be tentative when it comes to lefties. And that was the book coming up, was that he looks dominant against righties, but what does he have against lefties? Does not have a good changeup. His dominant weapon is that sweeper, which has the biggest splits in baseball as a pitch. So, and then I watched him, and as everyone was lauding him, I was like, I'm still watching the same guy. And against lefties, it's backdoor curveball, like backdoor breaking ball, up and away fastball. And those aren't pitches he can command that well. So, I don't know. I think there's risk there. I would actually rather wait 2 rounds and get one of the other group. I think that it is really exciting and it's really cool stuff. And it's high velo and it's super bendy. It's fun to watch. Stuff Plus loves it. But in terms of command, I think there's guys who have better command. In terms of what do they have weapons wise against lefties and righties, I think there's better guys, you know. So I think there's just a little bit of risk here that people aren't fully appreciating. I mean, and I think this number is only going to go up. I think the difference is only going to go up. I think McLean has, you know, the big up green arrow on him that everyone wants in McLean. I'm just pointing to the one flaw that he has that sort of should put him in this group of other really exciting guys that each have one flaw.
Yeah, I mean, I would almost say like his one, like another flaw is just the cost. Like it's sort of like you really got to like him to take him 2 rounds ahead of these guys. You were talking about how you think like when the other projection systems come out, it's going to kind of affect some of these guys. How do you think McLean will do when like Oopsie and the back come out?
Well, Oopsie loves his stuff, and so it may just be just as excited. I don't know. Steamer has a 3.76 for Nolan McLean, and I think if you just plug in Steamer, you're not going to get his draft cost right now.
Right. You know, I was interested. Like, it's interesting to me that 2 of the top 3 pitching prospects, Nolan McLean and Bubba Chandler, were both two-way guys until like McLean was even hitting in 2004. I think Chandler is either, or 2024, and Chandler was either 23 or 24 that he gave it up. But like the projection systems with these two-way guys, once they give up the other thing, like, do you think that that's a potential like weak spot in terms of the projection system, not necessarily knowing that the guy was focused on those 2 things up until like 2 years ago?
I also just think that not having Stuff Plus in your projection system is a major weakness when it comes to small sample guys, because there's just, you know this from watching prospects, like there's just so many different ways that you can achieve success in the minor leagues, and so not all of those are available to you in the major leagues. And it's a little bit like having great numbers in the minor leagues but not great bat speed, and we wouldn't know what that bat speed is necessarily. And you know, maybe they have good legs and they're turning singles into doubles and they're keeping their slugging percentage up, but then they come to the big leagues and you realize, oh, there's no juice in that bat. You know, that bat's really slow. And they were just getting by on just kind of savvy, which they can still succeed on savvy, you know, but you kind of want to bet on the guys who are monsters, who throw hard, who have great stuff. You know what I mean? And wait a little bit longer to believe somebody who's succeeding, you know, without those things. And so, you know, for the most part, all these guys that we are into, do have small sample great stuff numbers. What is interesting is that location plus or command is something that is not as sticky year to year, and that could lead to big leaps in growth from some of these guys, or it could be their downfall. And when you kind of look at these guys through the lens of their command, McLean is the one that has the worst command, I think. At least that's what the advanced numbers say. Misiorowski would be the guy that comes to mind, right? But the numbers say it's McLean.
You think what do you think about McLean versus Yesavage?
Oh, or Yesavage also. let me look at the numbers here. So for McLean, we had a 95 location plus on the year, an 8.5% walk rate. And for Yesavage, we had a 93 location plus and 11% walk rate. So you're right. Yesavage has the worst command of the group. He also has a really weird grouping of pitches where, you know, he doesn't basically have anything that goes glove side. So none of his pitches breaks away from a righty. And we saw reverse splits in his numbers. And I believe that more teams, we saw Tommy Edman choose to hit right-handed against him. And I think that, you know, Tommy Edman's a switch hitter. So we're going to see more teams stack righties against him because he throws a slider that moves towards righties. And everything's in that top right quadrant, if you're familiar with like the movement charts. So there's a lot going on with Yesavage where I'm like, what happens when teams get multiple looks at this guy? What happens if they stack righties? Will the walk rate go up because he doesn't have, that arsenal, that pitch that he needs that kind of goes away from righties? How can he dominate righties if everything's moving towards them? I like Yesavage the least of this group.
Yeah, I think he's someone I don't expect to end up with. Everything just happened so fast with him, and with his price just sort of skyrocketing to like a level that I would not have imagined like a month, like back in late August, the idea that Yesavage would be going in the top 150 of redraft leagues would have just been a crazy idea.
Yeah.
So it's happening really fast for him. I will say, like, in his defense, like of all the stuff we're citing and we're comparing him to these guys, like he doesn't turn 23 until after the All-Star break, which is just nuts.
And he did manage. I mean, if you can add the postseason in, and you get to 130 innings. So
yep.
He seems like, usually teams are okay with like an extra 20 to 30% on top of that. So I think you could say 150, 160 innings for him pretty easily.
Right. And he's like, they're always going to have a spot for him in that rotation. And
it's a great splitter and
good team.
Wins. Yeah. I mean, it's not somebody I wouldn't want. It's just, I think compared to the other guys, I see lower walk rates. I see just as good strikeout rates. I see, great velocity. I see on good teams. So you're really, I think it's going to be very interesting. I mean, in some 12-team leagues, with against lesser opponents, maybe you might be able to, pull 2 of these, maybe even 3 if you wanted to play on the knife's edge. And you might really profit from such an approach. So I would say for 10 and 12 team leaguers, like circle all these names,
right?
And get as many as you can get because these are super exciting young arms.
Right. And if you hit on, like, say you get like Burns and Schlittler, and like they might both be top 20 guys, and super.
But for the deeper your league gets, the more I would say investigate each of these flaws, because each of them, they're young pitchers with flaws, and just try to discover, what you think is the most important flaw. Are you most concerned with command? Are you most concerned with size of arsenal, innings? What is the thing that freaks you out the most?
What are you most concerned with Bubba Chandler?
He is, by the model, another sort of Sheehan, like change up first guy. And I think it's a little bit more obvious with him, and he has the reverse splits. So, the Stuff Plus does like his slider. So maybe this was just his first time through the big leagues, but splits for pitchers actually become meaningful very fast because they're telling you something about their arsenal, right? So it is interesting to me that Bubba Chandler came up and dominated lefties and had a harder time against righties. But I love the park. I love the velo. The model loves the slider. This could be another one of those things. Like I think there's something to what you're talking about with McLean and Chandler, just in terms of putting the pieces together, that maybe you shouldn't be freaked out on McLean against lefties because he hasn't been doing this that long, and maybe he's going to figure out something that works. And Chandler against righties, the model likes the slider. He has a great park. It should work out for him.
Yeah, Chandler's going about a round after Yesavage. I think the wins column is hurting Chandler. I think probably relative to some of these guys, because the stuff is pretty loud.
Kind of remarkable. I mean, it was a limited sample, of course, but he had a 305 slugging and a 197 OBP against lefties. Chandler did 362 slugging, 317 OBP against righties. So.
That's interesting.
Strange thing.
I thought righties would have that good of a time against him, but so this is the first guy that I'm like really sort of confused about the ADP on is Cade Horton. Horton's going on average around pick 179. So inside the top 200 pretty comfortably, going, well outside, well after these guys, round and a half after Chandler. But Horton had the really low ERA, but just the projections, the performance from last year, just it's leaving me wanting a little bit. I also don't really trust him as sort of like a guy that I can rely on for 140, 150 innings either. So pretty hard pass for me on Cade Horton inside the top 200. What are your thoughts?
I mean, if anybody listening is surprised to hear James say that, I just would list out, I think, some of the underpinnings of your argument, which is, the average major league starter last year had a 23% strikeout rate. Cade Horton had a 20%. When you look at strikeout minus walks, which are, the most predictive sort of, I know it sounds like two stats, but it's kind of one stat. Anyway, it's one of the most predictive stats we have. I was happy when Stuff Plus beat K minus BB by the slimmest of margins for like 400 pitches, so K minus BB is still the most strongest popular thing that's on most leaderboards. 14% is about average for a starter. Cade Horton, 13.4%. So, those are, then I can get into the Stuff Plus, which was below average. But I can also tell you that, I think the Cubs must have a different stuff number, because the guy who first ever wrote about Stuff and Stuff Plus was working for the Cubs when, a year after he wrote about it. So I know they have a stuff number. It just it's not the one I have. And they've had some success with their guys. They love cut ride, and Cade Horton is a cut ride guy. So, the reason maybe they love cut ride is how it interacts with their defense or how it interacts with their park or both. But when you look at Cade Horton's 258 BABIP, and normally that's around the league, that's something you would regress. The projections regress it to 292. Usually it's around 290 to 300 for the league. Maybe you can say the cut ride fastball is going to keep that number down. And so he's going to be good. But lastly, we play fantasy, not real life. So, even if the projections are missing that, he's going to suppress homers, he's going to suppress balls in play with the cut ride fastball, he's going to have all this excellence because of how he interacts with that park or whatever it is, he's still not going to strike out a lot of guys. I mean, you give a guy 118 inning sample, he gives you a 20% strikeout rate. That you're going to fall behind on strikeouts on his starts. So, that if you have an unlimited league, head-to-head league where you can stream and everything like that, there's no limitations, maybe that doesn't matter to you. But if you, even in a 15 team where it's unlimited, you have a Cade Horton start and versus somebody else, that's one or two strikeouts you're behind. You do that over and over again, you fall behind. So he deserves to be behind all these guys based on the strikeout rate alone.
Now, Connelly early, is someone who the redraft crowd is much higher on than the dynasty crowd. I'm more on the side of the redraft crowd, but I still can't really believe he's going inside the top 200 now on average in draft champions, which I did not see the price being this high. So it's kind of forcing me to second guess some ideas, especially when his teammate Payton Tolle is sitting there going outside the top 300 in draft champions. I like both guys a lot, but there's just a huge gap in the price tag there. I think early conventional wisdom would say he's in the rotation next year. Payton Tolle, I think, is getting priced as a guy that maybe opens there at AAA. But what do you think about those two Red Sox lefties?
Yeah, I mean, lefties outperform their projections and have outperformed the Stuff Plus. We had to put our finger on Stuff Plus and give lefties more credit just to make them equal. Because lefties have just, I don't know what it is. There's a whole Stephen Nesbitt article on the Athletic about this phenomenon. One thing that he found was that lefties have more pitches in terms of pitch types that they throw than righties. So they're ahead of the, throw everything you've got in any count kind of strategy that's going across baseball. And hey, look, Connelly early, 5 pitches that he throws more than 12% of the time. And so you've got a really big mix. What else? What is it with the lefties? There's fewer lefties in baseball than usual. So teams aren't seeing them. Part of it is the loogie is gone. The lefty 1-out reliever guy is gone because you have the three pitcher minimum. So batters are just seeing fewer lefties, and that makes the lefties you do see harder to see. So I know Matt Eddy over at Baseball America just loves lefties, and he'll take a lefty, if you've got 2 choices, take the lefty, he says. So, I have an inner Matt Eddy in my head, and I say, for this year, I like Connelly early. I love that throughout the entire minor league run that he was on, he struck out more than 30% of the batters he saw and walked fewer than 10% of the batters he saw. This is about the most polished of a minor league run you can go on in 2 years. Just ERAs under 3 at so many different stops. I think he deserves it, and he's polished. Tolle is like a little bit of like a raw, high stuff guy that may need to take a year or two to figure it out. And I can see why Dynasty would say, I want the guy with the high stuff, but I also see why redraft is taken early. And honestly, the Red Sox aren't even done yet. And right. I kind of assume that they're going to get another pitcher, which just pushes Tolle even further down the list. I do believe Connelly early is ahead of Patrick Sandoval and Cutter Crawford. So if they get another pitcher, maybe Cutter and Patrick Sandoval are in a competition to see who's healthy, who's in the pen, who's in the starting rotation, who starts on the IL. But that's why Tolle in redraft, I think he's the kind of a draft and hold guy, and probably near the end of the draft and hold, because there's Kyle Harrison I haven't even mentioned, and Richard Fitz was pitching last year. So, where does Tolle fit on that depth chart? I think early's ahead of him.
Yeah, back to your Matt Eddy loves lefties thing. He gave me a bunch of notes for this Orphan Dynasty panel I did at First Pitch, since he took over a orphan team and won Devil's Rejects. And his whole point, one of his big points about the lefties, is just that they have to face righties, like just nonstop righties, as soon as they get into baseball, that they just sort of have to be able to get righties and lefties out.
Oh my God. Yeah. At a little league level, it couldn't be more obvious, dude. In little leagues, you're like, oh, a lefty. You're like, everybody get over to the other side of the field. Everybody right. Shift. And the pitcher's like, ooh, what do I do? It's like, I think there were probably like 3 lefties in the entire Palo Alto Little League last year.
Right. And so, I love lefties as well. A couple of righties going in between those 2 Red Sox lefties that I'm getting higher and higher on are Jonah Tong of the Mets and Troy Melton of the Tigers. Tong's going at 263 or 263, and Troy Melton's going at 288 on average. So both in the 250 to 300 range. Tong is really like a very unique pitching prospect. I think he was the best pitcher in the minors last year, just from a kind of results and dominance standpoint, and was pretty unlucky in the big leagues in a tiny sample. So he's going after pick 250. And then Troy Melton, I know the Tigers have said that they're going to use him as a starter next year. I thought he was just really, really awesome, both in the minors and the majors as a rookie. He's no longer eligible for my list, but still under 50 innings. What do you think about Tong and Melton?
Melton, for me, it's kind of funny. If Jackson Jobe didn't exist, I would be all over Troy Melton. The reason I bring this up is just that Troy Melton, by the models, looks like he can do no wrong. Literally, he has a 107 stuff plus, and he has above average stuff plus on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pitches, with his slider being basically right at average. So that's 6 pitches that he throws with command of most of them. 97-mile-an-hour fastball. Like I would love to just anoint Troy Melton my favorite right now. I would let's just be like, he's going to be on all of my sleeper lists. The only thing that I'm worried about is he goes to the minor leagues, striking out guys at a good clip, and he gets to the major leagues and he strikes out 20% of the guys. Now, normally I'd say, oh, well, the model says he's going to strike out more. The projections, when Oopsie comes out, will say that he's going to strike out more. And so let's just believe in the stuff. But Jackson Jobe had great stuff numbers and came to the big leagues and didn't strike anybody out. So I don't know. Is this a situation where he has a bunch of pitches, but he doesn't have the pitch that he needs to strike people out? To be fair, the best pitch by Stuff Plus is a splitter. And sometimes splitters lead to, fewer homers and a low BABIP, but not necessarily great strikeout rate numbers. So screw it. I love him. It's fine. I love him. The 20% strikeout rate is the reason why he's going lower. And I think I would bet on that just being better his second time around. I mean, it was a little bit better in the postseason. And I think he's just going to put together the pieces. He just needed a little bit of time to figure out how to pitch to major leaguers. Tong, on the other hand, I do think I like him a lot, but I do wonder if there's a fatal flaw in the mix, which is it's a 2-pitch mix. The curveball is not very good. And it's a 2-pitch mix without command necessarily. A 91 location plus, which is pretty bad. It's kind of reliever level. We saw high walk rates for Jonah Tong in the minor leagues. I'm just worried that the breaking ball and the command aren't good enough. I mean, if you think of a 2-pitch guy, fastball splitter, without command, I can't think of one. But with command, I can think of Kevin Gossman is like the big answer, right? If you think of Tim Lincecum, who was, everyone says, oh, Jonah Tong looks like Tim Lincecum, and he really does. It really looks a lot like Tim Lincecum. Tim Lincecum did have 2 breaking balls, So I just need Tong's breaking balls to get better or his command to get better. And that's a need now, like I need something. Melton, I guess I need him to put the pitches together, but that doesn't seem like as big a deal. I don't know. It's like he has the pitches, just needs to sort of figure out what order to put them in, I feel like. And with Tong, I'm not sure he has the pitches. So that's what I'm worried about with him.
Who do you like more out of Tong and Tolle for like just a draft and hold? Like if you're just going to bet on somebody getting you like,
I think Tong is closer to innings.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd take Tong over Tolle right now. Right now, well, yeah, I do think so. I mean, because we've heard some stuff about Kodai Senga being on the market. I'm not convinced that Brandon Sproat is ahead of Jonah Tong. So, right now they would have Tong, I think, is their 6th. And even if they sign a guy, could they trade a guy? I could see that happening. And then between Manaea, Peterson, and Holmes, I don't think that you give out a single A health grade ahead of Jonah Tong.
No, I'm interested to see what they get out of Christian Scott this year too. In his first year.
On Fangraphs listed right behind Tong.
Okay, let's see. Tatsuya Imai, he was someone you talked about a little bit at First Pitch Arizona. I'm going to talk with Tim McLeod about him next week on the show as well. But just since you kind of went to all the trouble of breaking down how good you think Imai is going to be, would you care to sort of share that with the listeners here?
Yeah, I mean, the real fun thing is through Lance Brzezowski, I got my hands on some movement numbers for him. And we estimated his arm angle at about 20 degrees. So he's kind of a low slot guy, which is important because you get these raw movement numbers. You say, 14 inches of vert. That's terrible. But when you put that into context with the 20 degree arm angle and you start looking at comps, the 2 comps that really jumped off the page for me were Luis Castillo's 4-seamer and Joe Ryan's 4-seamer. And I put Luis Castillo's away a little bit because, he was kind of sinker first guy at first, and he's older. Also, he doesn't throw a splitter. Imai throws a splitter. looks a little bit like Joe Ryan's splitter. So now you got Joe Ryan's fastball, but he sits 95 and touched 100. Joe Ryan was 93 plus last year. So you got like prime Joe Ryan fastball with a splitter, and then he throws a reverse slider, which is like the Yesavage slider that goes arm side. So I think he's got uniqueness. He's got interesting shape of fastball with that angle. He's got better velo than people might expect. So I'm all in on Imai. When I looked at possible outcomes, his strikeout minus walk rates were more similar with like a Kikuchi or Masahiro Tanaka coming out of Japan. Both those outcomes would be pretty good. People have to remember the entirety of careers. Kikuchi's end of career was really good. Tanaka's beginning of career is really good. So I think this will be a guy that hits the ground running. He's 28. He's, put together well, and he's really got an interesting mound presence. He does little finger guns sometimes and stuff. And when asked about like coming over here, talked about like starting a rivalry possibly with the Dodgers and with like Ohtani and Yamamoto. So like, it's a guy who thinks really highly of himself, like, wants to go toe to toe with them, may end up in some place like San Diego or San Francisco in terms of starting a rivalry and being on the West Coast, and has the potential for dominating stuff. So, if you want Joe Ryan with an extra couple ticks, like I think you sign up for Imai.
If you want better Joe Ryan pitching in San Francisco, potentially.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'd hate for him to end up in New York because it's just a tough stadium. But that's also an outcome. But at least you get a bunch of wins if he does that.
So, do you think he belong like right now? Like lately, obviously at the beginning of draft season, he was going like in the 350 range, but that's long gone. Now he's pretty much going around pick 200. Would you, if you were like in a high stakes draft right now and it's like at pick 150, like how much longer are you waiting until you take Imai?
Not at all. Not waiting any longer.
Just taking him.
I've got him in my top 40, and right now I'm struggling ranking him against like a Kevin Gossman. Obviously it's really hard to figure out where to put Zach Wheeler, but even like Shane Bieber, Kevin Gossman, even a Kyle Bradish, like I think I like Imai better. It's just he's going to be 3-4 years younger than all those guys, and the league hasn't seen him, and he has some really uniqueness to his stuff.
Okay, Braxton Ashcraft, we're late enough in the pod that we're probably not going to blow up the spot on too many people here with some Braxton Ashcraft talk. I know you and I are both pretty high on him. 26-year-old righty in the Pirates org. The Pirates have a ton of starting pitching, but I think they'll find room for Braxton Ashcraft. Threw 69 2/3 in the big leagues last year after throwing 48 1/3 at AAA. Biggest question I've always had about Ashcraft was just, could he handle a full workload, because that had really been a problem with him. But easily sets a career high in innings this past year. What do you think about Ashcraft for 2026?
Yeah, putting aside the innings risk, which is substantial, he's had some crazy injuries, and I always thought maybe he's headed towards being the closer there, and that's probably might even be on the table if there's an injury between now and March. But it is frontline stuff, and it's based on, I think there's like a couple different ways to be good. It's based on like the Kyle Bradish type of way of being good, which is he has a dominant curveball. It is a beautiful, beautiful, great curveball. And the real step forward he took this year is he developed a sinker outside of his four seam. So now he's four seam, sinker, slider, curveball. It's still the curveball that's like the center of this whole thing. The arsenal is all built around the curveball. But now he's a 4-pitch guy around that. I really do think he can be a starter. He also threw 100 more than 100 innings last year, like you said. And when I look at that depth chart, I believe that Mitch Keller will be traded this offseason if there's a buyer. That just allows everyone to move up a step. If Mitch Keller is not traded. I still believe that Braxton Ashcraft starts the season in the rotation ahead of Oviedo and Burrows. So I would say that Oviedo and Burrows are kind of fighting for that 5th spot. And then things do get complicated when Jared Jones is healthy. But, a lot of things can happen between then and that point. So I think he starts the season with them. And since he put 100 innings on the table last year, I'm giving him 125, 130 innings at least this year. And I'm not too worried about it. I'm all over Ashcraft.
All right, before I get you out of here, just quickly on the Giants, since you're out there in Palo Alto, there's 2 Giants starters who are definitely in the rotation, easy top 150 picks, Logan Webb and Robbie Ray. And then there's not a single other Giants starter going in the top 400. I'm just going to read you potential Giants starters and where they're going. So Landon Rupp is going at 416, Hayden Birdsong 516, Trevor McDonald 523, Wisenhunt 580, Kaiwei Teng 637, Blade Tidwell 725. Any of those guys?
I'm taking the last one. 725. Hard to go wrong with pick 725. I mean, I could just list off really quickly why I don't really like the other guys. Carson Wisenhunt is a 2-pitch guy, changeup lefty. What, sinker changeup lefty? Like, that doesn't exist for a reason. What are you throwing? What are you throwing hard against righties? What are you throwing soft against lefties? It doesn't make any sense. Hayden Birdsong. I mean, in past years, I might have just continuously done the Joe Boyle thing and said, this will be the year. But I think at some point your command is so bad, I just have to say, I'm sorry. I can't believe it until I believe it. I see it for more than 50 innings, I think. Trevor McDonald has a good sinker, does keep the ball on the ground. I think he's an ideal 6. Just a guy that you have while you have options, you bring him in. He doesn't hurt you too bad. Maybe you win some 6-5 games with him starting 7-6, that sort of stuff. But he doesn't have a real bat misser. Doesn't really have a pitch that'll make him like a Logan Webb, who is a really high end ground ball guy. I just don't see that upside in him. And then Tang just doesn't have the fastball. He doesn't have the breaking ball command to do to do the 4 breaking ball thing. He does bend the ball really well, but I don't see it happening for him. So all those guys are out for me. Tidwell is, what Tidwell is the Brandon Sproat, Nolan McLean, Clark Schmidt, Will Warren, Michael King. It's the sinker sweeper guy that has developed pitches around the sinker and the sweeper to become a starter. And I wouldn't say that Tidwell is necessarily, I mean, obviously I put Michael King on this list. Like, I don't think he's the top of this list. He's not Nolan McLean, but he's on the list, and, a lot of these guys have produced value. So the key for Tidwell is, does the command improve at all? And if the command improves just a little bit and the health is there for him, I think he's the guy of all these pitchers. He's the guy I would bet on to become a starting pitcher in the top 5 for the Giants this year.
Very good. Yeah, I agree on Tidwell at that price. I mean, you can basically get him with your last pick of a draft and hold or one of your last 3 or 4 picks of a draft and hold. I like that bet there. So great stuff, Eno. You want to let people know what you got working on or what you're...
Yeah, I'm going to put up a piece of my 5 favorite free agents sometime this week. Imai is on it. But just for your listeners, a little taster. Cody Ponce is also on it.
Very good.
He went to Japan and almost set the strikeout rate record there, and did so with a new 95 mile an hour fastball and a new splitter. And the word new being very key here, because some other guys that might be coming back aren't as new as they might seem. A guy like Foster Griffin or Drew Anderson, I would say that they just had good success over there and they hadn't really changed that much. But yeah, so my favorite free agents are coming up, and we're still broadcasting on Rates and Barrels. We're going to put up an episode with Jed Lowry sometime tomorrow.
Awesome, man. You're the best. I really appreciate you taking the time, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks for having me.